I haven't gotten to say this in a while, but hey everyone, it's Glitchy here. Today we're going to do something a little different. This is a series I wanted to start where we basically look at different kinds of games inside of the industry that I can cover all at once without having to dedicate an entire video on a specific game. So welcome to the first episode where we're going to be tackling live service games that are, in my opinion, good, not so good, or very, very bad. So to start off, if you've been living under a rock in the gaming community, you're probably wondering what the fuck a live service game is, which a lot of people would probably tell you that it may be a prolonged ritual in summoning the Antichrist. But live service is really simple. It is basically an idea that a game can actually last longer than how games used to be released annually, either having a single release with expansions for new content, or one continuous game that just receives free updates while having a large amount of microtransactions to support the studio. There are plenty of games that fit into these categories nowadays, and I've even covered some on the channel like Marathon and Arc Raiders, which in all technical terms are live service games, complete with battle passes as well as other microtransactions. And live service games have become such a common thing nowadays that even if you don't know what they are, you probably have played one before. Games like Helldivers, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, the list goes on and on, which is part of the issue we really need to talk about today. With so many live service games being out nowadays, which ones are even worth the time? And what effect have they had on the industry as a whole? So if we need to start anywhere, we need to start where the industry truly felt a change, with a small game made by a little indie studio, and that game is called Fortnite. So Fortnite as a video game is a very basic concept, and quite frankly, it's almost shocking how long it has been able to keep itself relevant. I personally don't play it very often, if at all, but I first started playing in what Epic Games calls Season 3, Chapter 1. Which, what a time to begin playing, with the John Wick skin being fresh to the game and the crossovers not being so rampant. This is really where Fortnite became a true household name and really started gaining a lot of traction in making sure that every single corporation and developer would feel Fortnite's impact all the way until today, which is honestly really funny because the game we know today as a primarily battle royale focused experience was actually supposed to be the tacked on mode, as it was actually made in response to another popular game at the time being PUBG. And that game is dead as hell now, unless you're Chinese or Russian. But Fortnite was supposed to be a survival base building game where you'd get resources and work on missions where you would defend areas from monsters with custom bases you could make. But that isn't the part we're going to be talking about today, and quite frankly, it isn't the part the developers at Epic give a shit about either, since they completely abandoned the Save the World game mode and just recently also made that free to play as well. And I can't imagine how that even went over at the board meeting, since no one there probably even knew what the game mode was to begin with. But the Battle Royale mode is extremely simple, as most of these games are, where it is an extremely repetitive loop where you load into a map, fly over the map, drop out of a flying container, land on the map, kill other players, and hopefully win. But here's the thing. Every single match feels extremely different because of how each match can play out. It totally doesn't feel like the exact same experience every time, because it all comes down to where you land and if you get any good loot. And I know I mentioned gambling a whole lot in some of my videos and how much I love it, but there isn't any good stakes for the player here. The gameplay loop is entirely dependent on if you get a good weapon from a chest or not, while the other games I've covered mostly, when there is something at stake, it usually comes down to your skill level versus the other players. And quite frankly, the level of unemployed or autistic you need to be to truly excel at this game, I just don't have the time or patience for. It also doesn't really help that Fortnite as a game, at least in my experience, is only ever enjoyable while playing with friends. Playing this game solo, especially nowadays, is one of the most boring experiences known to man, since Epic, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that instead of populating entire lobbies with players, to keep engagement up, they must try and force the players to have fun. So they spawn brain-dead bots in the lobby for you to kill, so it makes people feel like they're actually doing something, which makes it so they're a lot more likely to queue another game. This is a strategy called Engagement Optimized Matchmaking, or EOMM for short. And this is exactly why a lot of these competitive shooters are dying nowadays. You will do somewhat well in these bot lobby matches and you'll feel great about yourself, so you queue another. Well, dumbass, that was a horrible mistake, because you have now been queued into a lobby with the most bitchless, unemployed, mommy's credit card abusing freaks you could ever see inside of a video game. But we need to move away from the actual game and move to how Fortnite has completely changed the industry in the worst ways possible. It's really easy to just point at the fact that Fortnite started the loop of every single publisher just tracing trends in a desperate attempt to make more money. Epic copied PUBG and made Fortnite. EA copied Fortnite and made Apex Legends. Activision copied all of them and made Call of Duty Warzone. And all of it was made only for the sake of making as much money as physically possible. Which, these are businesses. They're made to make money, and I have no issue with that. But you can see a clear decline in general player satisfaction after all of these companies decided to start pumping out copy-paste slop. Fortnite, in particular, also made it a hot deal when Avengers Infinity War came out to make sure product placement could be at an all-time high if there were skins and game modes that came out which related to whatever movie was coming out at the time. Which, don't get me wrong, I've got fond memories of absolutely nuking people as Thanos in the OG map. But if I had to exchange those memories for an industry not based off of corpo bait trying to drag everyone's brains every which way, it'd be a pretty easy decision. It also doesn't help that I actually used to really like Fortnite and would play it all the time. I've got a lot of fucking skins on this game, and quite frankly, now I can only really look at the game as a giant walking advertisement for whoever has paid for the ad space. Like, one of the largest events they've had in a while was a map themed around The Simpsons, of all things. A show that has been running since the 90s and is still coming out today. Not even Family Guy got that treatment. And Marvel has gotten their share too, with entire locations and seasons dedicated to their IPs, which, speaking of seasons, we haven't even gotten to talk about one of the many symptoms of the horrendous disease we got from Fortnite, which is the horrendous Battle Pass system. Every single game nowadays has to have a fucking Battle Pass. Fortnite easily does it in the worst way possible. At the very least, a good chunk of companies now don't force the fear of missing out onto players by making it so if you buy a battle pass, you can finish it at any time. Fortnite, though, will put skins in the battle pass and will never make them available again, or recently will make you wait 8 fucking years for the chance to buy the skin again. Out of all characters, Spider-Man and Superman were both Battle Pass skins. Did Disney and Warner Brothers really not consider the idea that their most popular characters might be worth keeping in their rotation for longer than 3 months at a time? I can buy Green Goblin whenever he comes back into the shop, but I can't buy a comic-accurate fucking Spider-Man ever again? I can't buy the comic Superman or the new movie version ever again? What the fuck are these people thinking? Then they go ahead and make skins based off of AI brain rot, which is a whole new can of worms. And this just kind of paints the fact that the game has completely lost its identity. And quite frankly, I just want to move on So let's just end all that there. So obviously we started out with the really, really bad section in the beginning. And as much of a negative person I can be, there are plenty of things that I can like too. I actually debated which game I should cover in this section where I talk about live service games I actually like. And I couldn't really decide between Marvel Rivals and Overwatch, so I'm just going to cover them both, since they should be similar enough, especially since they've had a lot of controversy with both of their respective player bases as well as between the both of them. Now, as an avid player of both games for the entirety of their lifetimes, you can clearly feel that as much as these games are good, they really, really suffer from what we talked about earlier, which is engagement optimized matchmaking. It's also interchangeable with skill-based matchmaking, which we will probably talk about later with another game, but it really sucks with both of these games because the matchmaking is genuinely so horrendous that it almost makes their competitive game modes completely fucking unplayable. And in Marvel Rivals' case, even quick play has become an absolute sweat fest since most players have just given up on ranked in general. And I remember when Rivals first came out and I absolutely loved the game. And I have occasionally come back and have tried out different seasons. Like I came back for season 5.5 when Gambit and Rogue were released, and I played a lot when Deadpool first came out at the beginning of this year. But I won't lie, these devs have absolutely fucked everything up since then. And I know that this is supposed to be the section where I talk about what I like, but it's kind of hard when the underlying system is so fucking awesome and the gameplay feels great, but the meta of the actual game is just abysmal on every level. I don't know how long the entire community has been asking for the Rivals devs to nerf triple support, and it could be as easy as making it so healers get a debuff when there is more than 2. And that could be across all 3 classes, but when Season 7 launched, they basically just said, your teams are just dog shit, get fucked, kid. So yeah, there are clear counters for every single triple comp, as well as just a skill issue in general, but that doesn't really help when I hop on for 3 matches and I stomp really hard for the first one after 3 months of not playing. Then the game throws me into lobbies with ex-Celestial players. And the same thing happens in Overwatch too, where the gameplay is exquisite. There is no other game like it. But playing fucking competitive is literally the worst experience you could ever put yourself through, because you will win a singular match and it will throw you deep into elo hell like no one's business. This is just the surface of issues in both of these games. I mean, Overwatch decided to remove 6v6 a while ago, and yeah, they added it back, but they're too scared to commit to it and just remove 5v5 from the game in general. They've also got role queue, which makes it damn near impossible to play with friends in any reasonable regard. I don't have a fucking 5 stack on a constant basis, and that means if I'm 3 stacking, I'm either waiting for a game for 15 minutes or I'm not able to play the role I actually want to play. Which, now we're going to go back to Rivals, where the devs rely so much on the game for cash to flow that they can't ban anyone permanently for throwing in ranked. Plus, these idiots don't know how to balance their game and are just now deciding to enforce a much more neutral playstyle in the game. But okay, for real, I'm going to talk about good things for each of these games now. I just needed to talk about the issues I have with live service that plagues these games in general. But each of these games may be hero shooters, but that does not mean each of them do not feel like some of the most unique shooters in the game right now. The fact that they are adding characters to Rivals once a month, no matter what, and have even at multiple points now added multiple heroes at a time, like the Fantastic Four coming in pairs, as well as Deadpool being a character that fits all 3 roles in the game. It's just absolutely astonishing in the live service genre, just for adding content in general. And again, there's literally nothing wrong with Rivals content-wise or gameplay-wise. all of my issues with Rivals stem simply from bullshit that plagues a lot of multiplayer games nowadays, being EOMM and an absolutely ignorant balancing team, to say the very least, where these people obviously don't play the game that they work on, because if they did, then they wouldn't hesitate to fix what the game is suffering from. But with Overwatch, this is some of the best FPS gameplay you can get in the market. Every single character feels as unique as possible. No one character feels like another, and all have playstyles that fit someone in the community. If you're new, you probably want to play someone like Soldier 76 since he's the Call of Duty character. Personally, I play tank, and I absolutely love Reinhardt because, well, why wouldn't I love slamming people into walls and hammering their asses? But Blizzard doesn't really like Rein. So while everyone has gotten reworks and buffs, Rein has been turned into paste, so the only way I get to really have fun is if I play the newer game mode called Stadium, which plays a lot like most MOBAs play, where you play, and as you do, you make money and you can buy items that affect your stats and will give you different buffs to make your playstyle unique. This game mode is easily the best part of Overwatch nowadays, and I have had more fun on this specific game mode than I have at any point, even during prime Overwatch days. And I don't know if it's because I started playing MOBAs or not, but this game mode is badass, and I would recommend it for literally anyone who might be on the fence about trying out Overwatch. But now we really need to talk about the rest of live service games and the fate that usually falls upon them. So there is no way anyone who got this far in the video didn't expect me to get to these games, but one you probably are thinking of isn't going to show up here because I have an entire video about it that I want to post about the company as well as the game and maybe even that game's future. But now we get to talk about games that I have never even fucking played. I simply got to watch how they existed as a concept and came to be, then just fell from the sky like a bat out of hell. Games like Concord, High Guard, I played this one, but 2XKO, and a list that could go on forever. But I want to really talk about the games I actually played out of that infinite list, and games that might be on their way to joining them. Starting with 2XKO. This game technically isn't really dead, but holy shit, Riot probably wishes that they canceled it at this point. This is the League of Legends fighting game, which was released not even half a year ago, and if you didn't know that, you're probably with the rest of the community, because Riot absolutely butchered the entirety of the marketing for this game by having it so there was closed playtests all of the time, and there was marketing for those closed playtests and ways to earn cosmetics for your in-game avatar, which led people to believe the game was out, which in reality it was far away from fucking release. But this was all in effort to release a fighting game to the public that only had 11 fighters at launch, which is absolutely unbelievable considering other games have had bad receptions at having as much as 24 fighters like Dragon Ball FighterZ. So in the time since the release, they have released one singular character into the game. And since then, they have laid off most of the team. And now the game is basically in free fall with a skeleton crew since it didn't make anywhere near the money Riot expected it to make, since they're used to people spending $500 on a single skin in League of Legends. And by the way, I need to say that 2XKO is a genuinely good fighting game. As someone who really struggles to find fighting games I like, as I barely frequent these games, and the ones I do I am a die-hard fan of, like FighterZ as well as the Mortal Kombat franchise. And it really sucked to watch this game basically just sputter out into the void after looking forward to it for so long. But what can I say besides Riot has no idea how to handle any games anymore besides Valorant and League of Legends. And lately, they barely know how to do that since League's retention has been dwindling, and I could be wrong, but it doesn't really feel like Valorant is on top of the world like it was when it was in its prime. But besides 2XKO, we're going to look at some older games in the live service industry, and you don't have to look very far, especially since we just had one get shut down for good after being out for 7 years, which was Anthem, a game made by EA and BioWare, which also came out like a fart in the wind. A game that seemed like it was going to be a Destiny killer mixed with an Iron Man third-person shooter kind of game, and it came out to an extremely poor reception and never really got its moment to shine. There were a lot of people that really enjoyed this game, but let's be honest, there were a lot more people who didn't. I was in the batch of people who didn't really like this game, as it felt like the first year of Destiny 1, where there wasn't a whole lot to do besides the endgame content. But the problem was there wasn't any good endgame content. The story was absolutely horrendous, and it never really got the redemption moment that Destiny 1 had with the Taken King a year after its initial release. And I can't even play this game anymore, but even if I could, I probably wouldn't want to, even if I needed to get footage for it, which kinda sums up Anthem in a long list of games that are just like it. But what about games that are looking like they're almost on their way out, which, not to sound like some negativity farmers out there, and by the way, that isn't a dig at anyone. Get your bag, I don't give a shit what you do. But COD and Battlefield are probably on the way out. They're really at a crossroads right now where they have both completely and utterly failed their respective fan bases. While as good of a game as Battlefield 6 is, EA is really just a bunch of fools who only are able to see the now of their company instead of trying to make Battlefield 6 be the next game for them, like how Battlefield 4 was. A long-lasting, strong, fun, and worthwhile game. They had absolutely nothing ready for the post-launch support and have absolutely fumbled the bag and are now talking about doing annual releases. So these idiots have learned absolutely nothing from their direct competitor and just did the exact same shit they have done, where they just rug pull the entire community. How many players do you think came from Call of Duty expecting Battlefield to be different just to get hit with the exact same treatment? EA, instead of keeping a fan base, decided to launch them away in a catapult directly into the sun. And Activision isn't doing much better with Call of Duty. COD has been on the downtrend for quite a while now, since the release of Modern Warfare 2019. And I know you can see record-breaking sales ever since Modern Warfare 2022, but you could feel the pressure starting with their redo of Modern Warfare 3. The double sequel releases and the shitty campaigns, Black Ops 6 with skill-based matchmaking, then the rug pull of Black Ops 7, where even I said if they kept the matchmaking as it was in the beta, I would be happy to play the game. But they didn't, and that's what led me to refunding the game and playing Arc Raiders instead. And these people don't understand that keeping fans happy will lead to player retention, and that will lead to much more money being spent from players. So why is every single waking moment of each of these games' development cycle being spent on making the player experience as bad as it possibly can be? All I ever see about COD anymore is just how bad Black Ops 7 is, which has put them in a real dangerous spot this year. GTA 6 is coming out this November, and COD usually releases around that time, so they either need to get the fuck out of the way or do a damn good job making sure every single person who touches this year's entry feels like they won the lottery playing it, because if they don't, COD could be going the way of the dodo. They've even taken such drastic measures as cease and desisting reliable leakers because they can't take the bad press anymore, which means they really are feeling the pressure this time around. Competitors are releasing. Just being Call of Duty doesn't mean a guaranteed success anymore. So it's yet to be seen if these two titans of franchises will either sink or swim. But there are so many games I didn't get to talk about. Halo Infinite, for example, was supposed to be a game that lasted for an infinite amount of time, and now we've been stuck just waiting for a new Halo game for quite a while now. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, probably dealt a huge death blow to Rocksteady Studios, who was in a really solid place before being forced into the live service industry. Games like Evolve, which had steady foundations but didn't land as solid as they could have. Even Back for Blood, Marvel's Avengers. The list can go on and on and on. Live service was looked at as a way to make a shit ton of money, and studios have been taken out back and shot because of simply not being able to keep up or gain a player base in the first week and a half. Sony wanted 10 live service games to be successes at this point, and most of their attempts have been horrendous failures, with only 1.5 of them being successes. Those being Helldivers 2, which they only published and don't actually own, and Marathon, which, as much as I personally love it, has failed to meet sales expectations even if it has officially sold over 1 million copies. So what is there to take away from this? Is it wrong to support these games in any way? No, absolutely not. All of these games have die-hard fans, and some, despite issues I may have made billions of dollars. There are even some I talked about today which I personally love or love to play, which really hurts when talking about failures here, because with the right support and the right vision and just a little bit of luck, all of these games can strive to be better or could have still been around today. So I want to know what you guys think. What is your favorite or least favorite live service game, or whatever else you want to leave in the comments below. Plus, if you would feel so kind, if you liked the video, then please leave a like and subscribe, as it would really help out the channel. I'll see you when I see you. This is Glitchy, signing off.